We're on Eruvin, Perek Yud, Mishnah Yud Dalid. Second to last Mishnah in Eruvin. The Mishnah is continuing to discuss things that you can do in the Mikdash, but you can't do in the Medina. Okay? Kohen shelaka be'etzba. If a Kohen has a blemish, a wound on his finger, I'm going like this. Korech alea gemi b'Mikdash. You're allowed to tie around it a reed in the Mikdash, avalo b'Medina, but you can't do it in the Medina. Remember we talked about ein shvut b'Mikdash. There's no dini d'Rabbanan in the Mikdash. Okay? So tying a gemi is Google Translate, is a reed of some kind. So it was like a band-aid in a sense. So you can tie it in the Mikdash. Okay, is why? Bartunira says, even though the gemi, the reed, will heal the wound. Okay, now it's tzorech avodahi. You need it for the avodah. Okay, so therefore, lav orech arash tehem makaton yu'etim avodah. It's not appropriate for Kohen to have an open wound, even though he could actually do the avodah without the band-aid. Avalo b'Medina, but not in the Medina. Tibrufu'ah b'Shabbat shavuti. Because refu'ah, healing on Shabbat, is a shvut, is a din d'Rabbanan, ve'asur, and it's asur. Okay, so this also raises questions of putting on band-aids today, but we saw in the last Mishnah, the Rav Malamid, the Shulchan Aruch allows it because that was only considered to cover it and not considered part of healing. It raises all kinds of interesting questions about stitches on Shabbat and how dangerous it is and the danger of infection. People are pretty liberal about that in today's day and age. They were much, much more machmir about refu'ah then, because Hilchot Refuah is a shvut, because it really did lead to shchikat samamnim, to the crushing of herbs and things like that, which is a din d'oraita. Im lahotzi dam, but if you're doing it in order to draw out blood, if you want to pull it tight to get the dam out, to get the blood out, because they did it, they understood that they felt medically that you have to get out the bad blood. Kan v'kan asur. It's asur not only in the Medina, it's also asur in the Mikdash. Why? Havolei chovel. Chovel is increasing the wound. The av melacha lo ishterei b'Mikdash. It's an av melacha. It's not a shvut. It's an av melacha, and that's dinei d'oraita are asur on the Mikdash. Next halacha. Bozkin melech al gabe kevesh b'shvir shelo yachliku. In the Beit Hamikdash, they would crush and spread salt on the kevesh, on the ramp, so that people wouldn't slip. Remember, in the Beit Hamikdash, on the mizbeach, it was there was blood all over the place, there was stuff all over the place, just like you would do in a butcher. It was a huge butcher. So they would crush salt and spread it so that people wouldn't slip. And you're allowed to do that on Shabbat. Okay, you're allowed to do that on Shabbat. Okay, mipnei shechalaka was very slippery. Upamim noflim mimenu, people would slip. Okay, and the lashon of bozkim is kitita, is crushing. You're allowed to crush the salt. Okay, the Bartanura clearly has the words avalo b'Medina. Seems to be in his girsa. It seems that the Bartanura had the girsa that you could do this in the Beit Hamikdash, but you can't crush salt on Shabbat, because it looks like, so it's a question of whether it's crushing is the problem in the Medina or the spreading of the salt, because he says, and let me go back to here, neshu mitaken, it's like you're fixing something, which raises interesting questions. And you can ask your local Orthodox rabbi, what about spreading salt on ice on Shabbat? Umemalim last halacha. Umemalim mibor hagola umibor hagadol bigalgal b'Shabbat. There were two places in the Beit Hamikdash. There was a bor hagola and bor hagadol, and in one of the offices and one of the side offices on Shabbat. But these wells had a galgal. Okay, a galgal means it has a mechanism. Galgal is a wheel. Okay, the problem is, Chachamim said that if you allow people to raise water with a wheel, on the well, okay, the problem was, Shar Barot Asur, you were not allowed to draw water from wells using the mechanism with other Barot. Gzeira, because it's Gzeira, Shema Yimale Leginato Ulechurvato. It's a problem because maybe once it's easy to draw the water, so once you can draw water, you're going to use it and then water your garden. Below torech, because you can draw water without tircha, without great strenuousness. Atilashkot boginato b'churvato. Maybe you'll water your garden also, and that's an isur d'oraita of zorea. Okay, but therefore, here we have a picture of the well. So in these wells, they allowed you to draw up the water. Okay, why? Because it was in the Beit Hamikdash, so therefore ein shvut b'Mikdash. Okay, and that's why they allowed you to draw. But any other well, it was a problem because if you're in your backyard, you make this thing, you make this contraption, you're going to do it, and maybe you're going to water your garden. The Bartuner adds, let's go back, he says, if there's a place where it's not near your field, and there's no gzeira, then you can draw, and I think basically that's what they did later on in history. If you had a well that wasn't near your field or whatever, your garden, then they would draw water. Finally, you can also mimale mibe'er hakar b'yom tov. There was a specific be'er that was called the be'er hakar. Why was it called the be'er hakar? The Bartuner says, Hashem shaya be'er ma'im chaim. It was fresh water. Covering the bor hakar, lashon makor, from the word of makor, of the source. Maybe they called it bor hakar, the cold bor, because everybody knows that if you have running water in the bor, it's very cold. If you've ever been to Tzfat, right, those wells, or the springs, are very, very cold if the water is still running. It was a bor that they needed, a water well that they needed, for the people coming up from the Gola, for Aliyah L'Regel, the Beit Hamikdash. The Nevi'im said you could draw water. Chagai, Zechariah, Malachi. Even the Nevi'im, I always love when they mention the Nevi'im in the context of the Mishnah. So the Nevi'im said you could use that regular water drawing, you can use the water well. And once they said you could use it, everybody used it. So even in the Medina, even later on, okay, that you can draw water. So somehow, in that board, they knew which one it was. They were permitted, once it was permitted to draw Be'er Hakar for the people going up Aliyah L'Regel, that heter continued later on into history. I'll stop here and dedicate a learning to the memory of my father, Rav Simcha ben Yitzchak Kalman. If you have questions or comments, you can always email me. Have a great day.